Hey, this is Matt at Custom Car Grills with a mesh install for a 2010 through 13 Infiniti G37 Sedan. The grill has already been removed from the vehicle, and the first order of business is to cut out the center section. The first cuts I'll make are in the upper corners with a Dremel equipped with the number 543 cutting and shaping wheel. I want to use a saw here to do a lot of the removal, but there's no good entry point on the sides without doing a cut like this. Now that the corner has been notched, I can get my open-ended saw blade in there easily and start working through the side edge. I'm getting close to the edge, but still keeping a little distance so that I don't dig into the side. Once the sides are cut, then I can get to work on taking out the vertical support bars on the top edge, and finish off the cuts with the bars on the bottom edge. With all the cuts made, the center of the grill can be removed and thrown away. Next, I'll get the Dremel back out and start shaving down any protruding plastic bits that remain from the cuts. The top of the number 543 bit is highly abrasive and works really well to trim down areas like this. With the side areas, it's a bit tricky to get the correct angle, but it's okay to leave a little extra material remaining. On the back, there's a small connector to the center of the lower edge, and that can be easily removed at this point. The top edge will have some tabs that will need to be trimmed off flush with the main edge that is a little bit more shallow. A tape line can help for this step if it's not clear exactly how deep to go. After that, I'll grab some 100 grit sandpaper and work down any remaining raised up parts on the lower edge, followed up with both of the side edges. Next, I'll grab some tape. In this case, I'm using some aluminum tape, but other tapes can be used as well. This needs to be applied to the side edge like so. If a deep mesh install is desired, then the V-notches in the lower edge will need the same treatment. To repair these cut areas, I like to use Valvoline's Plyo Grip Plastic Repair number 3, though other plastic repair materials can be used. The Plyo Grip easily dispenses into the cut areas just like this. I'll overfill it just a little bit to ensure full coverage on the sides and the bottom edge. Then I'll grab a small spreader to work the material in further and even it out some. Any excess can be removed with the spreader too, which will help reduce the amount of sanding needed later. Once the Plyo Grip is cured, then I'll remove the tape and throw it away. The back of the repair looks good, but I'll add a thin layer of repair material here just to ensure that it's solid all the way through. After it's applied, I'll use a small brush to even it out and remove any excess. I also repeated these steps for the lower edge repairs too. And now it's time to get back to sanding again. Something aggressive like 100 grit should work fine for this. I'm just trying to work the repaired area down some so that the edge looks proper, as if it came from the factory that way. After a moderate amount of sanding, this is how mine's looking. Overall, I think it's starting to take shape quite well. A fair bit of this repaired area will be trimmed off later for our mesh install, and I'm less concerned with the areas that are deeper in towards the back. Next, I'll get some Bondo out and add a pinch of hardener and start mixing it up. In the previous steps, I had stripped the chrome from the grill in these areas that I'm applying the Bondo. If the chrome had been there still, then I would need to have it been stripped before moving forward. Just like with the Plyo Grip, I'm moving the Bondo around with a spreader to ensure full coverage. Once it's hardened, then I'll get the sandpaper back out and start working it smooth. Using a medium grit like a 180 to 320 will work fine for this step. I'm also going to take the time to strip the chrome off from the rest of the grill at this point. The grill shell is going to be a different color, and paint doesn't usually stick to chrome surfaces very well. Here's a quick look at the grill thus far. The Bondo is sanded fairly smooth and the chrome is fully stripped. Edges look about right, and again, a fair bit of this back edge will be trimmed, and I'm more concerned with how the areas near the front look. For one final touch, I'm going to apply a thin finishing putty coat to fill in any very small holes or cracks. After I've got some mixed up, I'll spread a very fine amount of this around the whole grill. From there, I'll get out some fine sandpapers to make the final contours. Again, I'm trying to make this look as factory fresh as I can by keeping the same body lines that existed in the stock frame. This is how the grill will look if a deep mesh install is desired using one of our universal mesh sheets. The pre-cut mesh piece we sell requires a more shallow install than this. If we look at the depth of the top edge, it's easy to see that it's much thinner up there than the sides and the bottom. I'm going to cut the rest of the grill to more closely match this top edge. To get the depth consistent, I'll grab some 3/4 inch wide tape. This needs to be applied very carefully to the front of the edge. On the sides, this location is where it transitions from the inside edge to the front edge. With the bottom, I started the tape right where the lower edge bubbles up when it's heading back towards the engine bay. After I'm satisfied with the placement of the tape, then I'll draw over top of it with a high contrasting marker such as this black Sharpie. Once the line is drawn, then I'll remove the tape and throw it away. Here's a look at where I'm going to be making the cuts to get the final depth of the grill. The Dremel with cutoff wheel should make short work of these cuts. A steady hand is quite important here because we want to keep this cut as smooth as possible. After that portion is removed, then any unevenness can be carefully worked out by using the top of the wheel to recontour any peaks or valleys. Finally, I'm done with all the cutting, filling, repairing, and sanding. This is ready to paint, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. I went with a flat black trim paint, and now it's easy to see how all the previous work turned out. This looks great, and I don't even have the mesh in yet. Speaking of which, here's a look at the mesh piece that we have for sale on our website. It's pre-cut and pre-bent specifically for this grill and for the installation depth shown in this video. With all the proper cuts made, the mesh will easily slide onto the back like so. To temporarily hold the mesh and grill together, I'll grab some cable ties and foam. The foam will help protect the paint, and the ties will help keep the mesh in place during the install. The ties should be holding the mesh fairly tight against the back of the grill, but there's no need to over-tighten them. Any extra forces applied might distort the grill and cause issues with reinstallation. With a handful of ties in place, the tail ends of the ties can be cut off and thrown away. To bond the mesh and grill frame together, I'll get out the remaining plyo grip that was left over from earlier. This stuff works really well for these applications. We can get a really strong bond to the frame, and this cures very quickly, so we don't need to wait days like some of the other adhesives. Once I get a decent amount applied, then I'll grab a brush like I used before and smooth out the plyo grip and work it in all the areas that I can. Of course, it's important not to have any of this spill through the front, so it's important to be mindful on where this is being applied and spread to. Once this is cured, then the ties can be cut off and thrown away, and now I'm done with the grill mod. Let's flip it around and see how it turned out. Wow, this looks great! The mesh and grill look seamless, and the black frame is very sleek, and this is a huge difference when we compare it to the stock grill. Here's a picture of how the grill looks installed on the car. We've got one with and without the Infiniti emblem. The new mesh closely resembles the diamond pattern in the lower bumper and really completes the look of the car. Well, that's all I've got for this video. I hope you liked it, and if you have any questions, then feel free to contact us, and thanks for watching.